Now what's going to happen is we can still drag it around. However, when we get to the edges, you can see that it doesn't actually go beyond the edges because we've contained it to the actual document, and the same with the other side as well. Now the difference to this is that we could actually inside here, let's say specify a style, so style type equals text CSS. So we could create the say the body to have let's just say margin left 50 pixels. Now you can see that even though our document actually starts with a margin here, we can drag it beyond these as well. So we can drag it in the entire document itself. And this is extremely similar, let's just get rid of that. This is extremely similar to the window value as well. However, this will constrain to the window itself and not just the document. So you can see that we can still drag it slightly beyond the document here, but it's constrained to the actual window itself. So very similar properties here, but we can actually do something with these. You know, you might have different uses for these. Now we're going to go on now and look at parent. Now at the moment, the parent of this element is the actual window itself, although we can still drag down the page here now. We want to constrain it perhaps to a particular element. Now let's go ahead and surround this span with a div, and let's indent that, and let's apply a style to this div. Let's go ahead and make the width 200 pixels and the height 200 pixels as well, and let's just set a background color of that. So now that we've got a specific window here, if we were to say supply document here, we can obviously drag this outside of this surrounding div, so we can drag it anywhere on the page we want or anywhere on the document we want. However, if we were to choose the parent value here, you'll see that automatically now this is contained within this parent, and we can't actually drag it outside of this parent here. So I'm trying to drag outside of this div, however it's not letting me. So this is probably a more practical example of the containment option, where you can specify a particular element to only be within the boundaries of a parent element. Okay, so let's just get rid of this div here. We also have an option to specify containments with regards to supplying the actual coordinates of the area. So this time in square brackets, it's important to note, we can choose we can choose x1, xy, x2 and y2, so we can specify a starting and ending area. So let's just, for example, say 0, 0 and end this at 200. We've now created what would be a rectangle, or a square, I guess, if you like. Although we're not actually containing this inside a div, we're specifying coordinates ourselves that we don't want this drag me to move out of. So now you can see I can't drag it out of this particular area. So you can sort of see the shape that it's formed, and we can specify a particular area inside of our document that we don't want the element to move out of. So that's the containment option. We're now going to move on to look at the cursor option. Now this is probably less practical, but a bit more interesting in the sense that you might want to create, you know, some kind of visual effect for your user. We can specify the cursor that is displayed when we actually drag a particular element. So by default we use the cursor, like you can see at the moment it's got the highlighting cursor that we'd usually highlight and some text with. We can change this, so at the moment it's at its default. For example, I could choose crosshair, and this would create a cross icon. You can see it's changed to a cross when I drag, or for example you could choose pointer, which is probably slightly more appropriate, and this creates a pointer hand icon as we drag. So now we know when we're dragging an object, obviously, but now we've created an icon to suit the overall concept of actually dragging. So we're dragging this around. So I think the pointer icon works well with dragging elements. Okay, so as well as that, we're going to move on to some other options. However, we're going to comma separate these so we can supply more than one option. So now at the moment, as the element is being dragged, we're changing to this pointer cursor, but we also want to take a look at other elements and include these as well. So the next one we're going to take a look at is the opacity. And obviously the opacity is the display of this from 0 to or from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 100 usually. Just basically its visibility. So for example, if I was to choose 0.6 or 0.6, so 0.60, this now has an opacity of 60%. So this is only whilst dragging. So you can see that the colors are as normal when we're not dragging. However, when we're dragging, you'll notice that the pointer has changed as well as the opacity. So this is another useful effect for when dragging, because we now, we sort of see the element as it's being dragged. And it's also important to note that if we're dragging over things, we can see behind these as well. So if we were to have other elements in our page and we were dragging over them, we now have the opacity set to 60%, or 0.60 in this case. Okay, so the next option we're going to look for, and again we're going to comma separate this, we're going to look at the let's say grid option. Now the grid option takes two values, and these are the points of the grid, if you like. So I'm going to choose 20 and 20. Now what this is going to do is it's going to allow this element to be snapped to a particular grid. At the moment we can freely move it around anywhere on our page and we have no grid to snap to. However, what this grid option is going to do is going to create an invisible 20 by 20 grid, which is going to allow us, when we refresh the page, to actually snap this to